We now begin with the Tughlaq dynasty, and among them, the one who established the Tughlaq dynasty was Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq. He was the first ruler of the Tughlaq dynasty. He was a capable military commander. He suppressed many rebellions and consolidated the empire. He was succeeded by Muhammad bin Tughlaq. So basically, all we need to know about Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq is, firstly, he was the first ruler of the Tughlaq dynasty. He was capable military commander. He consolidated his empire and checked the rebellions. After that, we have Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Muhammad bin Tughlaq succeeded his father Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq. He was a very learned man. He had deep knowledge in philosophy, logic, mathematics, and medicine. He knew several languages like Persian, Arabic, and Turkish. He also knew Sanskrit. The main source of information about this period are the records of the Moroccan traveler Ibn Battuta. Ibn Battuta lived in the court of Muhammad bin Tughlaq for many years. He tells us that the king was a man of great ideas. He thought of many ambitious schemes. However, he did not implement his ideas properly. Therefore, his plans failed. When we talk of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, we know that he was a learned man, and the things he was good at was philosophy, logic, mathematics, medicine, etc. Apart from this, he was a man very learned, and he knew many languages like Persian, Arabic, Turkish, and even Sanskrit, which was not very prevalent at that time among people. Then we talk of the Moroccan traveler Ibn Battuta. The source of information about this period, what kind of a ruler Muhammad bin Tughlaq was, we come to know from the works of Ibn Battuta, who tells that Muhammad bin Tughlaq was a wise man with good plans, but his implementation were not done properly. The plans which he had were not executed properly, and that is why they were failure in most of the cases. Among the various plans, first one is transfer of capital. Muhammad bin Tughlaq decided to transfer his capital from Delhi to Devagiri, that is Daulatabad. There were two reasons behind this. Number one, Muhammad bin Tughlaq thought that it would be a better place to administer and control the empire. Number two, the Mongols constantly threatened Delhi. Daulatabad would never have such a problem. Now, shifting of capital from Delhi is here, and shifting it down to Daulatabad was a major difficult process. He shifted from Delhi to Devagiri, which was later on he named as Daulatabad. And the two reasons he thought were that Delhi being very close to Mongol attacks, he would be away from them if he shifts to the southern side. Apart from this, he also knew that this will constantly keep the control over the southern part, as well as being centrally located, he will be able to control both the parts. Muhammad bin Tughlaq instructed the entire population of Delhi to leave the city and move to Daulatabad. The people resented the idea of shifting to Daulatabad. The journey to Daulatabad was long and arduous. So soon he realized that it was impossible to keep a check on the northern frontiers from Daulatabad. So he ordered the people to march back. The kingdom of the Deccan saw this as the sign of a weak sultan and began to assert their independence. So it was then that the people knew that shifting of capital from Delhi to Devagiri, that is Daulatabad, was not a better idea. Why? Because firstly, he thought it will be a better place. Secondly, he'll be away from the Mongol threat. But in fact, what happened when he reached there, he instructed the entire population of Delhi to move along. So now people who are living in Delhi, they were asked to shift along and move along to a new place called Devagiri. So the people died, number of people faced many difficulties on their way. And then when he reached Daulatabad, or Devagiri as we call it, he realized that still the northern frontiers were away and he had to control people from there, and it was sounding difficult. So he decided to move back from Daulatabad to Delhi, and this coming back to Delhi, the entire remaining population was very upset, and finally They could not manage it and it was a failure. Taxation in the Doab. In order to increase revenue collection, the Sultan raised taxes on the peasants of the Doab region. Doab was facing a severe famine during this period. To raise taxes at such a time was a big mistake. Peasants abandoned their land. The Sultan had to finally withdraw these orders. Basically, if you see, this was the Doab region, which was watered by the tributaries and distributaries of Ganga, and it was a fertile region. So, his plan was to tax here heavily. The peasants could afford because it was a fertile land, so he knew that the peasants could easily give more than what they got. So, he decided to tax the peasants heavily. His plan was good, but the execution could have been better. But on that particular year, the Doab region was struck by famine, which caused the distress among the peasants, and they could not afford because of the famine. Famine means sukha padna, and they could not afford this, so it was a failure. So taxation in the Doab was a failure for Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Next was introduction of token currency. Muhammad bin Tughlaq introduced token coins in brass and copper. These could be exchanged for silver coin at any time from the royal treasury. The copper and brass coins had the same value as the silver tanka, but he failed to check forgery. People started minting coins illegally. As a result, trade suffered. Foreign merchants refused to accept the token currency. The Sultan had to give silver coins in exchange for forged coins. The treasury became empty. So, the plan of executing the precious metals like silver and gold could be replaced by cheaper metals like brass and copper. His implementation of this idea was good, but Muhammad bin Tughlaq's execution was again wrong to an extent. Why? Because brass and silver, being cheaper metals, could be easily available for the common people, and so the people started forging the coins. Forging means jali farji coins banane lage, and so they could make the forged coins, which they even exchanged from the treasury. The royal treasury was repaying the forged coins with the silver coins. In this way, the treasury became empty. It was a heavy loss imposed on the kingdom and the king itself. Apart from this, with these brass and copper coins, the traders also refused. The foreign merchants refused to accept this token currency. So the plan was good to come on to cheaper metals, but the implementation again went wrong because of his lack of foresightedness in the field, and the foreign traders and merchants refused this kind of a cheap currency. Next, his aim was Khurasan expedition. In order to extend his empire, Muhammad bin Tughlaq decided to conquer Khurasan. He mobilized a huge army and spent a large amount of money to equip it with weapons. Later, he hastily abandoned the expedition. The army that was raised was disabled. Muhammad bin Tughlaq became very unpopular because of his schemes. He lost the trust of the common people, the nobles, and the ulemas. Revolts broke out in Bengal, Gujarat, and Warangal. The Sultan lost control of the empire. He died in 1357 of illness. So, again, this tells about the remarkable planning. Muhammad bin Tughlaq wanted to plan up an expedition to a place called Khurasan. He wanted to get this place, and for that he even maintained a large army. He executed proper working. He equipped the army with the weapons, spent a lot of money on them, but later on he disbanded the idea. He hastily abandoned this expedition and disbanded the army. That means it was a total failure. The money he gave, the money he raised this army, he was an unsuccessful attempt. And because of these many failures which Muhammad bin Tughlaq came across, he was not very common and popular among the masses. The ulemas are the religious heads, and nobles are the people who look after the affairs in the kingdom. So both the nobles and the ulemas, they did not trust him very nicely, and the revolt broke out in Bengal, Gujarat, and Warangal. This particular green box tells us that a writer very famous at that time was Ziauddin Barani, and he wrote in his writing that Muhammad bin Tughlaq appointed people in his kingdom from a very low grade potentials, and he gave them high administrative posts. Now this very well tells that he did not have the proper judgment, political judgment of whom to keep and appoint as a person who's capable enough for a particular post. Like for one example, I would say that he appointed Aziz Kumar, who was a wine distiller, and he gave him an important post. Then again, Feroz Hajjam, a barber, was also appointed and given a very proper and prominent political place in the administration. This tells in volumes that he was not good judge of characters as well. The last among them was Firoz Shah Tughlaq. After the death of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, Firoz Shah Tughlaq became the Sultan. He realized that various measures adopted by Muhammad bin Tughlaq had displeased the ulemas and nobility. He therefore adopted some measures to appease the ulemas and the nobles. He increased the salaries of the nobles and gave bigger jagirs to them. Soon the nobles and the ulemas became very powerful and began to influence the policies of the kingdom. Firoz Shah Tughlaq introduced many welfare activities, such as he dug new tanks to store water for agricultural purposes. He repaired old tanks prepared by Iltutmish and Alauddin Khilji. He dug canals from the rivers Yamuna and Satluj. These canals irrigated a large area of land. He constructed 30 mosques, 40 buildings for educational institutions, hospitals, public baths, wells, and bridges. New cities were also built during his reign. Feroz was a deeply religious man. He withdrew taxes from that were against the spirit of Islam. He removed all pictures from the walls of the palaces. He prohibited women from visiting the tombs of holy saints. The death of Firoz Shah led to a war of succession. The last Tughlaq ruler, Muhammad Nasiruddin, ruled from 1395 to 1413. The invasion of Mongol ruler Timur in AD 1398 sealed the fate of Tughlaq dynasty. He invaded India and looted Delhi. He killed thousands of people. Before leaving Delhi, Timur appointed Khizr Khan as his deputy in India. Now, all we need to know about Firoz Shah Tughlaq is that he was after Muhammad bin Tughlaq. He knew that Muhammad bin Tughlaq had displeased the ulemas and the nobility. That means the religious head and the people in the kingdom who were holding high ranks were displeased, were not happy with the working of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. So Firoz Shah knew about this. So to compensate it, he increased the salary of the ulemas and the nobles. He gave them big jagirs. It was a kind of bribery. Then soon the nobles and ulemas became very powerful. So these are the 3 points we need to remember. Then we need to talk about the next heading is the welfare schemes which he followed. He built up many new tanks. Then he repaired the old tanks which were constructed by the earlier rulers. He dug up canals and rivers across the river Yamuna and Satluj. Then apart from this, 30 mosques, 40 educational institutions were built. There were hospitals, public baths, wells, and bridges built for the people. So all these were working under the welfare schemes which he followed. And he was a deeply religious man. Finally, we know that the last among the Tughlaq dynasty was Mahmud Nasiruddin Tughlaq. And his reign came to an end after the Mongol invasion done by Timur. He was a Mongol invader. And the date is very important, 1398, which sealed the fate of Tughlaqs. That means with the invasion of Timur, when he invaded India in 1398, the Tughlaq dynasty came to an end. And before Timur went back to Central Asia, because he was a Mongol, he went back after looting India and Delhi.